Catherine's voice cut through the countdown chatter like it had been waiting for the right moment. "That seat," she said, standing, smoothing her dress, "is meant for Eleanor's direct line." Isla froze. She was 8, feet swinging, hands sticky with cider foam. The chair she'd used every New Year since she could reach the table. Madeline had just arrived with Julian, coats still on, excitement buzzing. Catherine didn't look at me when she stepped closer. She looked at the chair. "Sweetheart, move," she said, calm as a receipt. Isla didn't understand fast enough. Catherine pulled the chair back firm, decisive. Isla went down. Her knee hit the floor. A glass tipped. White splashed red. The room went silent. Someone cleared their throat. Someone else whispered, "Let's not make a scene." My father half stood, then sat. Julian stared at the table. No one moved toward my child. I was already there, lifting Isla, my hands shaking as I felt the heat of her skin. She pressed her face into my shoulder and went still. "Mom," she breathed, small and careful. Catherine exhaled, as if relieved. "We have to honor legacy," she said. "You understand." I didn't answer. I carried Isla away from the table, past faces that pretended not to see us, past the television shouting the last minute of the year. The story in the video is a creative work by Revenge World. All characters and events are fictional, crafted to convey a humanistic message and the values of family. At home. I cleaned Isla's knee while fireworks cracked somewhere far off. She watched my hands like they might make a mistake. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked. I swallowed. "No." She nodded, trusting me the way children do when the world doesn't. I stayed up after she slept, replaying the pull of that chair, the quiet that followed. If you're listening right now and this feels familiar, stay with me. Leave a comment where you're hearing this from. It helps me tell the rest the right way. I sat in the dark and understood something I had avoided for years. Silence had never kept us safe. Isla slept on her side. One hand curled around the edge of the blanket like it might disappear. I sat on the floor beside her bed until my legs went numb. When she stirred, I stayed still. In the kitchen, my phone buzzed. My father's name. I let it ring. A message followed. "Let's talk in the morning. No need to upset everyone." I typed, then erased. I set the phone face down. At breakfast, Isla traced the bruise on her knee with a careful finger. "Grandpa didn't see," she said, offering me an excuse to use for him. "He saw," I said softly. "He didn't help." She thought about that. "Maybe he was busy." I nodded once. "Maybe." Another message came, this one from Julian. It got awkward. "You could have handled it better." I didn't reply. The words sat there, neat and final, like a judgment already made. Isla pushed her cereal away. "I don't want to go there again." "You don't have to," I said. She looked up, searching my face. "Even if they ask, even then." She relaxed. Just a little. I watched it happen and felt something inside me shift. Not anger, not fear. A line being drawn. Later, alone. I opened the drawer where I kept things I didn't want to think about. Old papers, old promises. I didn't read anything yet. I just held the weight of it. Silence had taught me how to endure. That morning, it taught me something else. Growing up, the rule was never written down. It didn't need to be. Julian learned it early. "Your father will handle it," Catherine used to say, her hand already on his shoulder. "Focus on your future." When I asked the same questions, the answers changed. "Be patient," my father said. "Things are complicated." Catherine smiled and added, "Independence will be good for you." At 19, when Julian's tuition was paid in full and a car appeared in the driveway, I asked about the trust Grandma Eleanor had mentioned. My father didn't look up from his papers. "That's not for you to worry about." Catherine's voice followed, soft and final. Don't make this about money. Veronica, I learned how to translate that sentence. It meant stop asking. Years later, I tried once more. I asked for documents. Just to understand. Catherine closed the folder in front of me with a neat click. You're overthinking, she said. This kind of suspicion can hurt families. After that, the air changed. Invitations came later. Decisions were made without me. When I spoke, the room tightened. Julian never noticed. Or maybe he did, and it suited him not to. Standing in my kitchen now, remembering Isla on the floor and my father sitting back down, the rule finally named itself. Some people were protected by silence. Others were shaped by it. The envelope was where I'd left it, tucked behind old insurance papers and a birth certificate I rarely touched. Eleanor's handwriting slanted across the front, careful and deliberate. My name. No greeting. I sat at the table and opened it. Inside were copies. Not originals. Trust summaries. Memos. A page with a paragraph underlined twice. I read it once, then again, slower. Protective clause. Fiduciary breach. Transfer of control. My father's voice echoed from years ago. Your grandmother worried too much. Eleanor's note said otherwise. If they ever tell you this is complicated, it's because they don't want you to see it clearly. I heard Catherine's calm certainty in my head. We've handled this responsibly. The papers disagreed. Dates stacked over time. Accounts referenced by names I didn't recognize. Language that kept returning to the same idea the trust was meant to be preserved. Not optimized, not redirected, not softened into something convenient. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. I searched for the card Eleanor had tucked inside. There it was. Jonathan Crowell, estate attorney. The name felt heavy with age and patience. I drafted an email and deleted it. Then I wrote it again. Clean and narrow. No accusations. No emotion. I found documents related to the Eleanor Hale Trust. I would like to confirm whether current management aligns with the trust's intent. I attached 3 files. Not everything. Just enough. When I pressed send, nothing dramatic happened. No relief. No fear. Only the sense that a door I had avoided for years was finally open, and it wasn't waiting for permission. Jonathan Crowell replied 3 days later. His email was measured, almost gentle. There are discrepancies that warrant review. I will need time. Time was the one thing Catherine didn't allow. She arrived that evening with my father, her posture calm, her voice already chosen. You shouldn't have involved outside counsel, she said, setting her purse down like a marker. It creates exposure. My father didn't sit. We can resolve this, he said, privately. I poured coffee and waited. Catherine folded her hands. Families don't survive suspicion, she said, especially when children are involved. I felt it then the shift. Say what you mean. She met my eyes. People ask questions when instability enters the picture. Schools, courts. You're a single mother. Optics matter. My father flinched. Catherine. I'm being practical, she said. We all want what's best for Isla. She slid a document across the table. We'll fund her education. Fully. A dedicated account. You won't have to worry. I scanned the page. Numbers written out in careful language. Enough to change Isla's future. And in return, I said, Catherine's smile thinned. You'll sign a statement retracting your concerns. You'll confirm the trust has been handled properly. You'll agree to stop communicating with Jonathan Crowell. My father finally sat. This keeps the peace. I looked at the signature line. I pictured Isla at the table, feet swinging, trusting me. Julian's text buzzed in my pocket. You're blowing this up. Think about your daughter. I am, I said, and pushed the paper back. That's why I won't sign. Catherine's voice hardened. Then we protect ourselves. She stood. My father followed, already tired. When the door closed, The house felt smaller. The silence they had offered came with a price. I didn't intend to pay it. The letter arrived 2 days later. Heavy paper, careful language. It accused me of defamation and interference, of causing harm to a family business I had never been allowed to touch. The closing line was polite. Cease immediately. My father called that night. They didn't want this. He said, "You forced their hand." I sent documents to a lawyer. I said, "Nothing else." People talk. He replied, "Reputations don't recover." Julian didn't call. He posted a photo of him and Madeline in the workshop, her hands on a half-finished chair. Legacy matters. Some people forget who built this. Comments stacked quickly. Supportive. Certain. At school pickup, a mother I barely knew smiled too long. "Rough time," she said. "Families go through things." I nodded and kept walking. Catherine emailed with a deadline attached to the same agreement. The language had changed, less warmth, more certainty. Failure to comply will result in further action. That evening, Isla watched me read. "Are they mad?" she asked. "They're uncomfortable." I said, "Because you said no." "Yes." She thought about that. "I'm glad you did." The next morning, Jonathan Crowell called. His voice was steady. "We're proceeding with a formal review," he said. "You should expect resistance." "I already have," I said. After we hung up, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. A single line appeared on the screen. "If you're looking into how Catherine ran things, I kept records. It might help." The name below it took me back years. Thomas Reed, the one who had been told he wasn't trustworthy enough to stay. I locked the phone, breathed once, and understood the shape of what they were trying to do. They didn't need to win in court. They needed me to stand alone. I wasn't anymore. Thomas Reed chose a booth near the back, his coat still on, like he didn't plan to stay long. He looked older than I remembered, more careful. "I wasn't supposed to keep these," he said, sliding a thick folder across the table. But when they told me I was no longer trustworthy, I figured facts were safer than promises. I opened it slowly. Contracts, emails, payment schedules, the same vendor names repeated, numbers drifting upward over the years. They called it optimization. Thomas said, inflated invoices, consulting fees that looped back through shell vendors. I flagged it. Catherine told me I didn't understand the bigger picture. Did my father know I asked? Thomas hesitated. He didn't ask. He pointed to one page. This supplier charged 3 times the usual rate for the same material. Another routed payments through a holding company Catherine controlled. Small amounts at first, then steady. I felt my throat tighten. For how long? 19 years, he said. That's when the pattern settled. I closed the folder. Why help now? Because they used loyalty to silence people, he said. And because they shoved a child out of a chair. My phone rang. Jonathan Crowell. I put him on speaker. "These records align with what we're seeing," he said after listening. "They strengthen the case. There is a protective clause your grandmother insisted on. If mismanagement is verified, control transfers to you." Silence filled the space between us. Thomas nodded once. "I'll testify if it comes to that." When he left, I gathered the folder and felt something solid replace the weight I'd been carrying. Not relief, not victory, ground. The first call didn't come from a court. It came from the bank. "We're conducting a compliance review," the woman said, voice neutral. "Certain transfers require clarification." Catherine called an hour later. "You've triggered unnecessary scrutiny," she said. "This is exactly what I warned you about. I sent documents to a lawyer." I replied. Everything else followed. Her breath sharpened. "You're endangering people's livelihoods by asking questions." I said. Charles asked to meet alone. He arrived without Catherine, hands folded, eyes tired. "Let this settle," he said. "We can fix it quietly, by pretending nothing happened." I said. He looked down. You don't understand how fragile this is. I understand how long it lasted. I said. Vendors began calling for confirmations. Credit tightened. A state tax inquiry opened. Careful and methodical. Catherine's emails grew shorter, then stopped. Julian went quiet online. Jonathan Crowell updated me in measured tones. Temporary oversight is being assigned. He said, You'll be asked to acknowledge receipt. I signed the document that evening, not with satisfaction, with steadiness. Isla watched me from the doorway. Are they still mad? She asked. They're busy? I said. She nodded, accepting that. Later, Catherine left a voicemail I didn't return. You don't know what you're doing, she said. You'll regret this. The house was quiet when I deleted it. The kind of quiet that comes when noise loses its power. The resolution didn't arrive with raised voices or a crowded room. It came in quiet notices and careful language. Catherine was barred from fiduciary roles. Oversight transferred. Restitution scheduled over time. My father retained his freedom and lost his authority. Julian stepped down without a statement. No one asked to see me. I didn't reach out either. The company changed slowly. Contracts were rewritten. Books opened. Some people left, uncomfortable with daylight. Others stayed and worked like they could finally breathe. When a supplier tried to push a familiar angle, I said no once. It was enough. A year later, New Year's Eve came back around. We stayed home. Isla set the table with the care she'd learned watching me. When she finished, she added one more chair and left it empty. What's that for? I asked. She shrugged. In case someone needs to sit without asking permission. I nodded and didn't move it. We ate. We laughed. We counted down with the television low. When midnight passed, Isla leaned into me and smiled like the room belonged to us. If you've stayed with me this far, thank you. Share where you're listening from, and tell me if this story sounded like a place you've been or one you're leaving. Your voice matters here. I turned off my phone and watched the quiet settle. The legacy Eleanor protected wasn't money or a name. It was the right to be safe without earning it. The chair stayed where Isla put it,